this video, I'm going to be talking you through how to approach question 1 in English Language Paper 1, and I am going to be focusing on the June 2018 paper to help you do so. So first things first, the best thing for you to do in these exams, both English Language Paper 1 and Language Paper 2, is to read the extract that you are presented with. So this extract, if you are not familiar with it, is, as it says at the top, comes from a short story written by a lady called Joanne Harris, and is about a man called Mr. Fisher. He's an English teacher, quite ironically. He's been an English teacher for 40 years, worked for quite a long time, and has worked at St Oswald's Grammar School for Boys. The essence of the extract as a whole is that he lives quite an average life, quite a boring life, quite a lonely life, goes to school, to work, obviously, and has done so for a really long time, but doesn't really enjoy it anymore. It's almost a bit of a chore for him to go to work. That is until he stays after school, getting through the heaps and heaps of marking that he is faced with, and actually reads a story by a boy called Tibet, and really loves it. It's not like anything he's ever seen before, and it kind of reignites his love for teaching, I suppose. Now that I have read the extract, I'm going to look at question 1. Okay, so question 1 will always be structured the exact same. It will be asking you to list 4 things, so 4 pieces of explicit information. Now what that means is it's essentially asking you to write word for word what is said in the text to do with a certain topic. It's not asking you to infer information, so it's not asking you to look at what certain words suggest or what it could mean, but it's telling you that it needs facts. Essentially, it needs 4 facts, 4 explicit pieces of information about a certain topic. So in this case, it says, read again the first part of the source from lines 1 to 4. List 4 things about Mr. Fisher from this part of the source. About Mr. Fisher, that is our focus. So what I'm going to go in with, I'm just going to go in with my highlighter. So for me, this is a really good way to ensure that I keep focused and don't get kind of pulled into something I shouldn't be looking at. I know that I'm focusing on what the question has asked. So about Mr. Fisher, I need 4 things. I mean, it kind of is self-explanatory, seeing there are 4 numbers, but I know that I don't need to look for more information than I need. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to transfer over to the extract and then demonstrate how I would go about retrieving those 4 pieces of explicit information about Mr. Fisher. From the question, I know that I only need to look at a certain part within this extract, within this source. So I'm just going to go with my ruler, because again, this ensures that I don't look where I don't need to look. I'm only looking at where I've been told. I'm just going to section that bit off. For me, that really helps. It might not be as effective for you. It might be really effective for you. It just, depends how you work best. But this works well for me. Okay, so just recapping the question, it says I need to list 4 things about Mr. Fisher. Okay, so I'm just going to go through, read this bit, and again, going in with my trusty highlighter, going to highlight any piece of information about Mr. Fisher. So you've got quite a bit actually in that first line alone. I would argue that actually that's all you need. You could break this first longer one into 2. So then you've got 1 thing, 2 things about Mr. Fisher, a third, and then 4th. But just to demonstrate this second line as well. So he preferred to do as much as he could of his weekend marking in the form room after school. So essentially, he didn't like to take his marking home. He tried to get it done at school, would rather stay later at school to get it done than go home. Alright, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you how I'm going to transfer that information onto the question paper itself. It is really important that with this question, as they are asking for explicit information, we need to be writing essentially as close to what it says in the text as possible. You can quote it if you like. That ensures that you are getting the explicit information, but you're listing the facts. All right, so I'm going to start off with the first fact over here that I've got. Mr. Fisher lived alone. So like I said, I'm actually just going to quote that. Mr. Fisher lived alone. You don't have to quote it if you don't want to, but for me it just ensures that I'm staying on topic, doing what I've been asked, and not inferring information. So a second thing about Mr. Fisher, just going to keep going from over here, in a small terraced house. There we go. So actually, I'm going to get rid of that. Mr. Fisher. And then I'm going to put, silly me, lived. And then it says, in a small terraced house. Okay, third thing, there we go, and that was in the centre of town. So here, I'm going to write he lived in the centre of town. And then last thing, he did not own a car. So the more often that you practice these questions, you will realise, like I did actually, I got to the end of that first sentence after just highlighting those things, and I realised, okay, I've actually got 4 pieces of information there that I could use for this question. So I didn't need to keep going. I wanted to just so I could demonstrate, you know, what I would do and what other information is in there. But I didn't need to read any further than that because I knew I already had my 4 pieces of information. So it's a really quick question anyway, but just bear that in mind when you are working through it. You don't need to spend longer than you need to doing it. So he did not own a car. So now that I've showed you how to answer this question, I'm now going to demonstrate how not to. I'm just going to write in purple for this bit, just so you can see the different colour, and you can kind of section the answers apart. You can section the right ones. These are accurate. These would get you 4 marks. These are perfect, from responses that would not get awarded anything. So, for example, if I looked at that first line, okay, that first piece of information that we are presented about Mr. Fisher is that he lived alone. If I were to read that and write something like this, Mr. Fisher was a lonely man, okay, you would get nothing for that. You would not get any marks for saying that he was a lonely man. Why not? It doesn't say he's a lonely man. It says he lives alone. That doesn't necessarily mean he's lonely and he doesn't enjoy his own company, okay? You would have inferred that information for yourself. I've inferred that he's lonely because he lives by himself. Doesn't tell me that. I've inferred it. I've read between the lines and made a suggestion. That's not what this question is asking for, okay? They are asking for facts, okay? So if I just get rid of this one, because I don't want to confuse you, you can see now, visually, that's wrong. That would get you nothing, okay? These are the kind of responses that you are wanting, that you are aiming for. Briefly then, I'm just going to summarise how you need to approach question 1, kind of in a nutshell. So look at the part of the source it's asking you to, section it off. Look at what focus you need to examine within question 1. In this case, it was asking us to look at Mr. Fisher. Nothing else, just him. Then go in with a highlighter, looking at the extract it's asked you to, and highlight any pieces of explicit information regarding the topic it has asked you to. So you are looking at the information that is written in black and white. You are not making suggestions, you are not making inferences. You're then going to transfer 4 of those pieces of information onto the exam paper itself, trying to stay as close to word for word as possible, and quoting the text might be a way of doing that. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that it has helped you, I hope it has reassured you, and I will see you soon in another upcoming tutorial.